Sanjay Gandhi, you've been around a state agency now for a good 10 years. You seem to have a lot of fingers in a lot of pies. I want to find out a bit more about the man. So, what I'd like to do is talk to you about your life from being a boy all the way through to where you are today and the what you've learnt on that journey. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. So, were you always an estate agent? Always
No.
wanted to be an estate agent?
No, not really. To be fair, my passion was, I wanted to be a business owner. That was my dream.
What was that? What age was that?
Probably when I was about sort of 12, I wanted to be the owner of a clothes shop. That was my dream.
So, where you originally come from, Leicester? Is that right?
Born and bred in Leicester,
Good
yeah.
stuff. Good stuff. Leicester. I think that's how the locals pronounce it. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Good stuff. And what? Second generation British Asian or?
Yeah. My
Yeah.
mum and dad have been in the country, of probably about 65, 70 years.
Good stuff.
I'm born and bred here, as I say, in Leicester. And
Okay, clothing. Because I mean, let's be honest, Leicester was quite synonymous with hosiery and clothing, wasn't it? Is that what you wanted then?
absolutely. And my father, he worked for Cora PLC, which used to be providing Marks and Spencer's, all the underwear and
I
everything.
think so.
So, as you say, it was the rag trade in Leicester. Definitely not what I wanted to do. And that was a great motivator, seeing my mum and dad work in factories and actually see the amount of work and hard work that they've put in.
Good stuff. So, are you an only child, or was it a big family of you?
No, there was my brother, who's 45, my sister, who's a year younger than myself. My sister's, predominantly...
You're the baby of the family, are you?
Yeah, I am the baby. And no, my sister's, a housewife looking after her daughters. My brother, he works for Amazon.
Yeah.
So a very ordinary working class family.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, what was the first proper job you had then?
I had a couple, Chris. So you talk about fingers in all the pies. I had a couple of jobs while I was at school. At 16, I got a job working in a bingo club.
Okay.
So I worked for Ladbrokes. That was my first
Okay.
ever full-time job. And then that was 3 days a week or 3 evenings a week. And I had a weekend job working for Sainsbury's.
Okay.
So-
Which job did you like the best?
Well, in the end, it was Ladbrokes. That job became my career, basically, because I never really studied that well at school or at college. I was more about, boisterous, and one of my big things was, table football champion, being a table football champion,
Oh yeah,
rather than
you're a bit good at that. Yeah?
rather than getting a degree. So that was my claim to fame. I was very good at that. Missed school sometimes, even just to play the table football.
Okay, so when did you join Ladbrokes full time in the gaming industry?
When I was 16.
Okay.
So I started there doing the
What, so
part-time.
no qualifications or not much to call on?
No qualifications. It was a part-time job, and I still remember it to this day. I started £1.38 an hour. That was
Wow.
what my pay
What
rate
year was that?
1984.
Right. Okay.
That's when I started that. And as I say, I never really had an ambition to carry that on or think I'm going to be in there, working for that industry for 20 plus years. What happened was I was waiting to go to college. My manager at the time, he was only 21. And
Wow.
I was like, wow, this guy, 21, managing a big operation like this. And to this day, I've kept in touch with him. He was really one of my first mentors.
What did he teach you?
He taught me that, if you want something in life, you just got to go for it. And, he was a real big aspiration and inspiration for me. Just couldn't believe that at 21, because obviously prior to him coming to the club, I saw other guys, they were like in their 60s managing a bingo club. So he really put me on the map, and I was like really curious, how do I get on the same journey?
Okay.
He told me, that I needed to really focus on the part-time job, prove that I could do all that, and over a period of time, it was about experience, nothing else. And then after a couple of years of experience, I applied to become a trainee, and luckily for me, I had an interview, it really went well, and I remember to this day, even in that interview, the area manager was like, okay, so you're living in Leicester, you're working in Leicester, what's going to happen if we set you on as a trainee and tomorrow we say you're moving to Aberdeen? I said, not a problem. And I think that was really the catalyst of what got me the job.
Yeah.
He was just testing that would he be able to take me out of my comfort zone and actually, put me somewhere else.
So you were a trainee. So how long were you full time? What were you doing as a trainee?
That basically, I got the job in August 84, 88. In August 88, I got my first role as a training manager. I was moved to Chesterfield. So it wasn't a million miles away, but it was still an hour away. I moved lock, stock and barrel, lived there, became a trainee, started working in, at the time, it was top rank as well.
Okay.
So Ladbrokes bought top rank, it was top rank Chesterfield. And really sort of learning and earning my stripes. What was I doing? I was doing all sorts of, learnings of things like, obviously within a bingo club, a lot of people always, if I could have banked £1 for every time somebody said, oh, are you a caller, bingo caller?
Well, I bet you've got the public facing bit, which is the calling at the front, but then I'm sure you've got to clean out the loos, sort the food out, you've got to
Absolutely.
sort out problems. You're basically firefighting.
There was 4 or 5 businesses under one roof, okay? You had the fruit machine business, you had the catering operation, you had the actual bingo, you had the ancillary games. So, and these were cash businesses, you couldn't game on credit, so you couldn't use your credit cards or whatever. It was pure cash. And again, some of these, businesses were taking millions of pounds in cash.
What did you learn by having almost like 5 plates spinning at the time? Because they're all crying out, a lot of cash flying around. What did you learn?
I learned you have to be multi-skilled. You've got to be able to, work in a fast-paced environment. And I think from a young upbringing, that's what I was always about. I couldn't really sit in front of the TV. I've never really been somebody that will sit and watch TV.
Were they long hours?
Absolutely. Long hours, unsociable hours. Every weekend, not every other weekend. It was every weekend.
Do you enjoy it?
I loved it. I mean, on my CV, that is the only job you'd see on there for 21 years, from man and boy.
So when did you get your first branch? Your first hall?
I got my first branch in 1990.
Well done.
So, I was fast track, did it in 2 years. And at the time, I was 21, 22. And it was Doncaster.
Back to Donny.
That's where I got, my first club. And it was the old theatre. But yeah, from then on, everything sort of just went upwards.
So how long did you have just the one branch before you moved on?
Probably about 15, 18 months.
Okay. Oh, so you were cracking on?
Yeah, 15, 18 months. And then literally, I mean, I've lived in Doncaster now 28 years.
Okay.
So, I spent a lot of time working all around Yorkshire.
Had you met Mrs. G at this time? Or as we like to call her, senior management?
Yeah, I met Mrs. G probably maybe just 12 months prior, to be fair.
Before getting to Donny?
Yeah.
Where's she originally from then?
She's born and bred Londoner.
All right.
So it was probably a couple of years thinking about it, because I remember managing in Leeds and I'd still be going to London on a weekend and things like that. And remember, we had no mobile phones in them days.
No.
So I remember, the parents all saying, how long you been on this phone and the cost of it. So yeah, it was funny looking back at it. And 1990, when I came to Doncaster, basically, we got married in 1990. She moved up from London. Okay. I moved up from Chesterfield, and that's where the journey started.
Do you think that's why you're still based in Doncaster? Because of that, that was where you put your roots down?
Yeah, I put my roots down. I didn't really want to upset the apple cart with my wife, with my daughter. So I was quite happy. My journey every day to work was an hour's drive there, an hour's drive back on a 12-hour shift. But for me, that was my thinking time, because all day long, as you said, very busy environment. You've got everybody coming at you. So it was great to have that thinking time.
Do you think your parents instilled in you hard work?
Yeah, I think, with most Asian families, no disrespect, I think that's something that's inbred from a very young age. And I think in life it's fairly straightforward. Even when you hear all these gurus, it's all about the hustle. It's about putting in the effort. and it's always going to be the long game. There is no quick fix in anything.
There isn't, is there?
No.
No. So you're married. When did you have your daughter? Who, by the way, if you don't mind me saying, is a chip off the old block of the pair of you.
Yeah, my daughter, as I say, I've been in Doncaster 28 years. She's now 22, so 6 years on. And Shanice, she was born 22. She's, recently graduated from Birmingham Uni, did an economics degree, a lot brighter than myself.
She's switched on cookie. I've met her a few times.
And to be fair, even with my wife, senior management, she's got her own business around property. So obviously got financial services business, Moss Mortgages. I've got Moss Properties and everything around it, again, property. So surprise, surprise, the daughter, you're not going to be surprised. She's actually on a leadership program with Taylor Wimpey, learning how to build houses.
There you go. So let's bring it back. So when did you get promoted to run an area role? Was that probably when you were 23, 24, something around there?
No, that was a lot later. And there was a reason behind that. I wasn't really wanting to sort of, get into these positions very quickly because I wanted to get the experience.
So what were you doing? Just moving around bigger branches, a bit like estate agents. You start with the smaller towns and you work up to the bigger ones. Is that what sort of thing?
Yeah, it was like that you got promoted. A bit like the Premiership football, that you come through, League One, Championship into that. That's exactly how it was in.
Okay, how was it different running a big hall versus a small one?
Staffing numbers, towards the end. I was managing a team of 200 staff, might be 5 head of department managers, and the bottom line was you were dealing with multi-million-pound businesses.
Were you enjoying it as much? Because again, I think there's a lot of estate agents out there who started off as a small branch in a small town, and then all of a sudden, I know I used to run a big city centre branch, and it was totally different.
Yeah, I think as you were climbing up and it got bigger and not always better, I think the issue for me was it was becoming more and more impersonal. When I had my first club, I knew everybody in terms of the customers, the staff, and as you progress, you have less time because you've got to focus on the figures and everything else.
Were you enjoying it as much?
Not towards the end, no. And I think that's really the key, hence why I'm sat here now.
Okay. So when did you make the area role? Because let's be honest, you were going up the slippery.
I made that probably in the last sort of 5-6 years before.
So what roughly year was that then?
You're talking probably around 2000.
Okay, so between 2000.
So 10 years later.
Okay, so around 2000. So between 2000 and 2005 and 6.
Yeah.
You were going up the greasy pole or the big ladder of area role. How different was that to running your own branch, even though it was a big branch?
Well, it was very different because you were dealing with personalities more than, really running a business. But the other thing, Chris, to say, it wasn't just the area role. I'd also opened 2 brand new sites for the company. That was like winning the Premiership, to get, 123 clubs we had to actually be chosen to open, these were multi-million-pound businesses. I opened a brand new, it was probably 40,000 square foot hangar in Sheffield. I remember that really well because we spent a fortune, and the opening weekend was when Diane unfortunately passed away and had the car crash.
97, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, still sticks in my head now. We closed and everything. We just couldn't even open our brand new club because obviously our clients were, really into the Royals. So, and then 99, 2 years later, I opened a new club in Dewsbury, West Yorkshire. And as I say, 2000, then was running an area as in Sheffield.
So what exactly did you learn being an area manager that, in terms of running multiple sites?
It was just, everything was, 10x basically. You're talking about managing 10 clubs.
But you're stepping away from the customer, aren't you? Because I know
Absolutely.
there's a lot of branch managers out there that are thinking, do the estate agents, should I go and be an area manager role?
It's more strategic. Everything's about planning and strategies rather than being on the shop floor, being at the sharp end. Everything seems to be second and third hand. And normally you're there, Johnny on the spot. You know exactly what people are complaining about, what they're not complaining about, what they like, what they don't like.
Okay, so from 2000 to 2005 and 6, you were an area manager and going up. Were you steadily getting enjoying the job more, or was it?
To be fair, I got to a point where obviously I've been in the business a long time, so I'd learned a hell of a lot, been successful.
Okay.
I had it pretty easy, all right, and that's where my mind started wandering. Okay, and from that, one of my New Year's resolution was I kept failing getting to the gym, so I thought I'm going to buy some property. So I became a landlord
Okay.
in 2004, 2005
This is in Donny.
in Donny.
Okay, but in terms of, you said it was easy. How did that make you feel? Because I know, knowing you now, that I think that might have been quite difficult for you being bored. I've seen you bored.
And that was the biggest thing for me. I just don't do sitting about or
Okay.
being bored. So
Were you
that
looking-
was the catalyst.
You were looking for distractions then, were you?
Yeah, I was looking for a challenge. That's really what it was.
Could you have gone up the ladder at the bingo?
I could have, but it was just politics. It wasn't something I wanted to do. This was then coming back to my ultimate dream was to have my own business, yeah?
Okay.
Because I was my own man, and even in the bingo days, you ran your club. The golden rule was week 52, you had a business review. If you did everything and made it happen, you'd get another 52 weeks, yeah? So you didn't have anybody micromanaging you or anything like that. It was, if you delivered the profits, you delivered all the lines, the KPIs they were looking for, you were fine. So I had 21 years of that, Chris.
If you don't mind me saying, running a bingo hall and running an estate agency, by the sounds of it, sounds very, very similar. You're trying to herd cats, bring the numbers in. There's your main sales, but then you've got the off sales and things like that.
For me, it was in one you shout house, in the other one you put people in houses. That was the link.
I love that one.
So look, the common denominator in all this was people, right? In the bingo clubs, it was all about people. In this business, it's all about people. And one of the biggest things I learned straight away in this industry was how the apathy, the biggest complaint was in my town, for instance, agents not getting back to clients. So I made that one of my mantras when I started my business.
Let's bring it back. To so you started being a landlord because you were bored.
Mm. And I was failing to get to the gym, so I had to do something that was going to, satisfy the fact that, right, this is a challenge. I'm competitive just like everybody else. I wanted to win.
So you became a landlord, and let's be honest, there's shed loads of landlords out there. How did a landlord turn into an estate agent? Letting agent.
I just saw the people in my town. They were, I had a guy who I actually bought a lot of property off. He was very successful. He was, he had probably 80%
Oh, so you're one of these
the
landlords
market.
that thought you could do it better.
Yeah, and to be fair, when I got my couple of properties, I gave it to a franchise, and they were just not very good. And I kept going to their offices, and
Why?
it was always
How did that make you feel that they weren't very good? Do you think
Because-
they weren't understanding you then? Or...
no, because there was no communication. The fact that my properties were empty for such a long time, when at the time, the market was very buoyant, especially, for rental in that town. So I couldn't really understand what was going off. And the bottom line was, the guy wasn't really driven. So I don't know how he became a franchisee.
So what point did you think to yourself, I need to do this myself?
When I'm sat in his office and seeing the lack of drive.
Okay.
However, I'm thinking, I haven't got a clue about running an estate agency, not really a clue about how does all this work. So in the end, Chris, you won't believe it, I actually offered him the opportunity to come and work with me. He actually closed his agency down to come and work with me.
Okay. So, when you went home that first night, what did you say to the wife when you said, I want to give up being a bingo area manager and a gaming industry and I'm being an estate agent, letting agent?
I remember to this day the drive home back from Leeds, because I was in Leeds at the time, and it was actually my sister and my wife. They were home, and I just said, something to tell you guys, this week, that is the end. And they were like, what do you mean it's the end? I said, it's the end. I've handed my notice in. I've told the company no more.
So you didn't even ask her, you just did it.
I just did it.
Brave.
it was a question of I just had enough, Chris. You know, I
Well,
got this.
did she have a job at this time, or was she being at home mum?
No. She was working. You know, both of us spent most of our working life both in corporate. She was working for Barclays.
Okay.
So she was
So
just
you had a bit of a wage coming in, but surely, your wage was pretty impressive. That's putting it all on the line, mate.
absolutely, yeah.
And how did you feel about that?
Well, I've learned that when your back's against the wall, you always come out fighting. You got two options: you either curl over or you come out fighting.
Okay.
All right. And I think for me, I needed something like that to really drive me on, because if not, I just didn't see myself being a bingo manager or an area manager or in the game industry till I was 65.
So when you set up, why did you call it Moss? What made you start that?
Yeah, a lot of people, certainly a lot of our clients, are like, why is it Moss and where's Mr. Moss? You know, we do get people coming in saying, can we see Mr. Moss? And the staff laugh. It was really just an area that I lived in, you know, previously, and I just felt that I wanted something that's fairly short and simple,
Yes.
not overcomplicate things. And again, to this day, you know, one of my friends said, what the hell have you named it Moss for? And he laughs now.
It's a nice green, if you don't mind me saying. So you set up in what year? 06?
2006, yeah.
2006.
Just before the crash,
Okay.
basically.
Estate agents and lettings agents?
No, purely lettings.
Okay. So how was the first few years? Scary?
First few years were just crazy. Did not have a clue. All right.
Okay.
To this day, I remember.
You were on the front line, going out, meeting the landlords, pressing the
Well,
flesh?
there was just me. You know, initially I took on the guy, but within a matter of weeks, he was at 5 mile an hour. I was at 100 mile an hour. So we had to sort of part company. And then what I did was actually, I did get to the gym, and I met an assistant manager at the gym who I thought she's very good with their customers. Exactly
Just on
somebody,
Natalie.
exactly somebody who I think would fit the profile of my business and what I'm looking for. And so I offered her an opportunity to come and work with me.
This is in 06, 07?
06, 07. And she was working, you know, for a corporate fitness centre. And she says, me come and work with you, would I, even to this day I remember, would I get a pay slip? That's the first question she asked. And I was like, well, I'm a one-man band, you know, we don't do pay slips right now. And I still remember that. Anyway, after a few days she thought about it, she rang me up and she said, no, it's not for me. So, you know, rejection being your best friend.
Go on.
So I went, no problem, you know, I appreciate the fact that you've actually called me and give me your reasons. So she decided she went into recruitment instead. And
All right. So it was a catalyst to get Natalie along. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you go and find someone else then?
Yeah, found somebody else, and it was literally through a job advert. That's how I found somebody else.
Okay.
Not very dynamic. Again, you know, with respect, the town was at the time ex-mining town. That entrepreneurial ship that I was looking for was really lacking. So I took somebody on. They were really just doing the admin. The good news is 3-4 weeks later, I had a call, and it was Natalie.
Good.
And she says, you know what, is that offer still there? And I said, yeah.
And how did that make you feel?
Yeah, I was fairly okay with it because, look, the bad news was the first phone call. But you know what? I've learned over the years, you don't worry about it, you just move on.
Okay. So has it been plain sailing since 2007?
Never.
Okay.
There's no such thing as plain sailing.
Okay, so in 5 years, so you got 2012, roughly how many did you have under management, roughly? A couple of hundred?
5 years, yeah, a couple of hundred.
Okay, so you're doing all right. What did you learn for the first 5 years of running Moss? Because you were just involved, I assume you were just being a good letting agent and having a few properties on the side as a bit of investment with senior management doing the mortgages.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she was still working for the bank. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, so she was still
Yep.
bringing the bacon home, as you'd say.
Okay.
And
So what changed? What changed with you just being another estate agent, a letting agent with a couple of properties and a bit of a team, into the man that I see today, who's got more fingers in more pies?
well,
You know, fine and country, franchise. You've got Moss Mentors, you've got Brainer Personnel, you're running events with hundreds of people coming to them. What the hell changed from you just being a normal estate agent, a letting agent, into that? What happened in 12, 13, 14, 15? What's happened there? Tell us the story.
Having great staff, okay, that's the number one thing.
Okay.
Having a team around you that understand your values, your beliefs, and are going to, walk over glass for you. So, for instance, Natalie, she joined me. She had no property background whatsoever. She's been with me now 13 years. She's been a branch manager of my business for the last 5, 6, 7 years.
You're bloody lucky to have her, if you don't mind me saying.
I know, and you know what?
And Fran as well.
People say this all the time, Chris, yeah? I'm lucky. I disagree. And I'm not lucky because it's called graft. And the fact that I've spent a lot of my 21 years that I've built in the gaming industry learning the tactics of managing, the art of managing, the art of recruiting. They were the skill set I brought in.
Why would you say your skills are? Setting a vision and...
Absolutely. Having a vision, getting people on board and understanding that.
Because if you don't mind me saying, you don't take fools gladly. I've noticed that either people stay there forever or they're out within a month or so, if you don't mind me saying, because we've worked together now for nearly 5 years.
Absolutely.
And half the staff are there and they're permanent, and half of them are just on a... I mean, do you think new staff... Do you think people... the ones... Have people changed, do you think, in terms of staff coming in? Or can you normally spot the good and the bad ones?
I think the biggest disappointment is when you sit down with people, you ask them what is it they're looking for, what is it that we can help them with, and then, they sell themselves well, we'll buy that, we'll bring them in. One of the things we do is our probation period, we find them out. And one of the first things we do is they come on a week's trial. Because with respect, I've seen so many people, they do that interview performance, they master that art, they turn up to work.
Even you can't spot them, the bullshitters, from the quality.
It's difficult, and the proof is in the pudding. For me, a week's trial sorts the good from the chaff out, okay? Because in that week, there's nowhere to hide. Certainly in our business, it's very process-driven, you've got to fit into it, you've got to demonstrate. And I'm talking simple things, Chris, where people can't even turn up on time. They, tell you they're going to do this and that, and they don't. And they're the beliefs and values that we have in our business. If you can't make these calls to the clients, then it's game over.
Okay, so you're telling me that it's process-driven and it's setting a vision, and your mindset and your staff's mindset that have changed you from just being another estate agent, to someone who's basically big in the game.
Well, it's hard work. Yeah, you're never going to get away from that. We've been out, 9 o'clock in the evening, 10 o'clock. I remember it's snowing. I've been to Doncaster Royal Infirmary, picking up a surgeon, showing them around an apartment because that guy could not get to a viewing at any other time.
What would you say to any estate agents and letting agents watching this who think they're ready for the next step but feel like they're hitting their head against the ceiling?
2 or 3 big important things, right? Change. That's probably my middle name. Change. If you're not prepared to change...
Have you learnt this throughout the years?
Yeah, absolutely. And even now, 35 years in business, I don't say I know it all. I don't. I spend a lot of time, energy and money in self-development because for me, I really started my learning when I was 37. That's a long lot, I was a late riser. And from 37 to now, in the last 12, 13 years, I've learnt a hell of a lot.
And that's becoming your own boss?
Well, not just my own boss, but, like I said earlier, I haven't been to uni. I haven't been educated to a standard. I've had to do my own self-education and actually have mentors that, have really got me to sit down and understand where I'm going, what I'm doing, how I'm going on this journey.
Okay, one last question. What's the future hold for Sanjay Gandhi?
The future is right now what I'm working on in the last 12, 18 months. Continuously been empowering all the people around me, but more importantly, I'm now looking for people within the industry that I could set them on to have their own businesses.
Okay.
So when you mention Fine and Country, Rainer Personnel, the model, the outlook for that now, I've got 3 associates working with me in York, for instance, for Fine and Country. They are all working for themselves
With you.
rather than working for me. That's the way I see the future, not just in this industry, but in a lot of industries, because recruitment is another business that I've gone into. I see exactly the same model there. We need more entrepreneurs in this country. We need more startups, but it's got to be managed in a very clever way. At the moment, I see so many businesses in this industry, their cost base is so high, and even with tenancy fee bans and all these things around the corner, a lot of the people that I'm seeing aren't addressing these issues.
Maybe we could talk about all those subjects in some further videos.
Absolutely.
Excellent, thank you.
Cheers.